I'm Alexandra Kreis, and you're listening to How to Travel in a Journey. Okay, welcome back to the show. This is How to Travel in a Journey. On my show today is Antonio Alemanno. Hello, Antonio. Ciao.
Hello, everyone.
Antonio is originally from Italy, and he's a bit nomadic. So he has his foot in 3 different countries here and there, and then he's also willing to travel wherever his calling is bringing him. That's what I hear. Anyway, the reason why I brought Antonio onto the show, he is multi-instrumentalist and composer, hatha yoga teacher and practitioner, and has fascinating stories of going against the grain with where his gut was calling him in regards to what he's gonna dedicate his life to. So is that a good way of putting it, Antonio?
Yeah, I think pretty much, yeah.
Yes. So how will we bring this to our listeners? I think we might want to start with talking a little bit about that you had a love affair with different instruments, and then this one thing came up. Do you want to introduce this a little bit to us?
Yeah, so at some point, like watching a movie, I think it was the Motorcycle Diaries, which is everybody knows what the movie is about. And that is based in South America, and you can hear a distinctive sound of a particular instrument, which is called charango. And and in there, it's like, wow, it seems like it's so bright sound and really beautiful, powerful. And then you see it's a really tiny instrument. It's like this. You can have like really the close hands, like in here you have the whole instrument.
It's like a ukulele, or
kind of, yeah. It has 5 double strings, so in total are 10, but it's more powerful because of this double strings. So then I started learning it, and transcribed more than 10 songs. Like maybe it could have been 15 or close to 20 songs, but 10 were only from one composer, particular composer from Buenos Aires, and which I found my way to go to his house, and I was very happy about it. And said like, well, you have transcribed 10 of my songs. I will listen from 1 to the end.
Okay.
So, and then he told me the story of each and every song, and I realized that they were all sad story, and about they described pain, and even though I couldn't tell from the story, they were very strong and emotional pieces.
Yes.
Yeah, but I couldn't really hear what was behind for real. And as I heard the stories, I kind of went away from the instrument because I didn't connect with that anymore.
Yeah.
Connect with the instrument, but not with its stories.
Yeah. Yeah. I could relate to this, and this is very banal compared to what we're talking about, but I was listening to this song this morning, I'm on Fire, from Bruce Springsteen. I know it's a pop song, but it's like the way the beat comes like Johnny Cash, and this kind of slow driving song. And I'm always like, yeah, I like this fire, because on fire means to me, I get ignited for something. And then I looked at the lyrics and I thought like, oh no, I cannot, subscribe to that, and now I'm in this kind of turmoil of like, what am I going to do with this racing beat that I love, but where the words don't even reflect what I want to say. Is that a little bit like that for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There is always, in receiving like a piece of art, it can be from music, from dance to a painting, there is always like an inner journey, like an outer story.
Yeah. And Yeah, and that's an interesting piece, you know, because you do deal with the arts, and that's somebody expressing something, and you're expressing something as a composer. And do you feel that we can we can use something, or personally, of course, this is all personal, I think, you know, like, do you feel that we can use something that we understand in a different way and place it in a different context so it fits our lifestyle? Or do you find that it's like robbing the art from the whole composition?
During my studies, that was often the question, because
Yeah,
I have been, and most of my colleagues, we have been studying like traditional stuff,
yeah,
traditional music, or like you're
yeah,
saying, you know, something from a contest and putting in another contest. And then we want to use that in another context. And was it, we have been asking even on our interviews and on our field studies, if, you know, that was the case of being, you know, like something sacred being, you know, taken away from its sacred
yeah,
place.
yeah,
And the answer was often like, it depends. It could be, but also not necessarily, because it depends, what do you do with that?
hmm,
How can you respect, let's say, the tradition, or in a more
yeah,
general way, you know, how can you respect the shape and the story that the thing represent, and bringing it in a new context. So I think it's always a different story and a different.
yeah. So it means, like, if we are conscious about what we're doing, that we're taking a powerful thing into a different context, but we're meaning it to excel this power into a new story. Is that what you're saying to us here?
Yeah, it's a little bit, you know, like it happens usually in music. Let's say a rearrangement of something.
Hmm.
There's you know, there's been, let's say, Bach. It has been played in so many different contexts, and you know,
Yeah.
there are some that they works like as amazing, as incredibly good as the original, and some other they don't work.
Hmm.
You know, like it's always a question mark if that is going to work or not, and
Yeah.
how with respecting the own history.
Yeah. And we can only go and find out. And I think this is where we're coming to this other story where you changed instrument, then you came across another instrument that you found
Yeah,
fascinating,
yeah,
right? Hmm.
yeah. Then I felt like that wasn't an instrument that I wanted to deep in, and so
Hmm.
back in my, let's say, wish list folder, you know, like there was a, let's say, my first love is like this beautiful, gorgeous, intelligent woman that you don't really dare to go and stand beside to, you know.
Yeah.
So, and it was the oud, the Arabic lute.
Yeah.
So I
Can you
say,
describe the instrument a little bit so we know? I think not many people would have seen it. So can you give it
yeah,
a
the
description?
oud, it looked like very much as the European lute,
Mm-hmm.
and also this has double strings, and yeah, and it doesn't have any frets. So in a way, it's kind of similar to the instruments which I play, which is
Yeah.
double bass or cello.
Ah, okay. Yes.
Yeah. So, and it has this there's nylon string, so the sound is quite sweet also, and can be
Mm.
either like party like, or it depends, because Arabic music can vary very much. It can be very melancholic and sad, or it can be uh, more emotional, or go really for party.
Yeah. And that was a little bit what you were looking for, as you said, you didn't
Yeah,
want.
because it's connected to dance also. So like most of traditional music, they are all connected to dance.
Hmm.
Also, actually, our European history, also that going to Bach, a lot of the
Hmm.
traditional stuff, they're always connected to dance.
Hmm.
We've been a little bit going away from that stuff, but yeah.
So what happened when you find the oud, the Arabic oud?
Well, I want to take the challenge. I was just sharing with my close friends, and one in particular, you, so is a good colleague of mine and my best friend in Finland. And so I said, like, hey, but man, you are a bit too ambitious. That's a hell of an instrument. It's it's one of the most complicated instruments to play.
Wow.
It's quite complicated,
Yeah.
and because of that, because of the ornaments that you have in the Arabic music, so yeah, it's not an easy instrument. Anyway, it takes years to start making some music with that.
Yeah.
But then I give myself the deadline. If I don't do something like, let's say, listenable or okay with me in 2 months, then I would let go from that and would have found something else.
Yeah.
But then apparently things were going pretty well. And I start my field studies, which means I was studying in Finland, but they gave me a chance to go in Palestine, Israel, Egypt to study with the great masters of the instrument.
Wow. Yeah.
And all my first 5 months, they were like the beginning, because I studied with 4 different teachers. And most of them, they were in the same line with you, so meaning like, hey, you can learn that, but it's not gonna be enough to do it 2 or 4 months. You will need 1 year to get this leader.
Yeah.
And luckily, during my classes, they actually were very surprised. Like, hey, it seems that you are born with this instrument. Like you were born with this instrument, because it would respond to me very quickly. So, and within 5 to 6 months, I was already performing with that instrument. And within 1 year, 1.5 years, I composed new music and performed a full-length concert. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not a musician, but what struck me just there, what really touched me was like the instrument, the way you said it, the instrument kind of spoke to you, or the instrument, well, what did you say just now? It's almost like it has a life in itself and it's teaching you. Is that what I heard, right? You know, it's almost like it's saying like, no, not like this or like that. How?
Yeah. Yeah, also, because the instrument can teach you a lot. Actually, also through the classes, there was a moment where Taisir, my teacher, said, hey, you seem like there is something you are not letting go. You are putting too much where it needs very little. And through this thing, through the journey of life, which I was in that moment, that was like, like a gate opening, because then through that sentence, a lot of things the instrument itself has revealed. Yeah, I think it's, all, in the end, what is the relationship between you and an instrument? It's, instrument, it's an instrument on its own, right? And I think it's how you can relate so that you become one with the instrument. Yeah. Because it's if you get to there, then what is music if just a language? So if you can blend to this one to bring your language.
Yeah, beautiful. It's this, I was thinking when we talked earlier, like that music is vibration, like in the first place it's vibration, and that a lot of what you seem to speak about and what I learned through yoga myself is the art of surrendering, instead of trying to control something. I mean, one could have kind of gone about and tried to like, I'm gonna learn this, and it would have been like an imposition. It would be like an emperor on a country, but what you were telling me is like, in order for you to hear these compositions or to be in union, like in yoga, you have to start to hear each other's language, so each one is teaching each one. Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. And so that brings me a little bit to the one question, that I'd like to ask my guests is, if you had a superpower, what would it be? And I don't mean superpower as in hiding something, but something that you or initially already have, you know, something that is driving you constantly, and people would say like, oh, that's so Antonio, you know. What is it?
I can get green at the traffic light.
But you can get green at the traffic light. What is that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think probably willpower.
Willpower, yeah. Because I think that you said it in the preparation to this interview that you are somebody who's very driven, and that's who I know you to be, you know, like you want something and you use a lot of willpower, you know, you could almost will everything into happening.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
and that's the funny, that's where I wanted to go with the question now. When I listen, when I play back to what we said earlier about what the instrument is teaching you and taught you so far, where your life broke open, that's what it sounded to me, you know, like so many things shifted in your life the moment you heard that sentence. It was exactly the opposite to your superpower, right? It was like as if you had to let go of that willpower thing, or is it not? Am I making that up?
So if when I got challenged, if I felt my willpower shaking, that's the question?
Yes.
Well, on one hand, yes, because like I said earlier to you, no, in our preparation, the interview, if I should summarize in one word what I do, it's listening. Yeah. So let's say through the yoga or through the music, through the composing, through playing an instrument, it's all about listening. So then when from the outer world you are having your inner vision and say, hey, someone is saying to you, hey, that means it's maybe too high for you. And then what do? It's like, you know, you're being challenged and, you know, you know that those people, they're either your best friend or very experienced musician and, you know, top level in what they do. And they're saying, you know, maybe it's a bit too much what you're asking. And how do you relate with your inner voice or your inner, perhaps, intuition or your willpower? So I think in the end, you will have to find a compromise and put on a scale, you know, like how strong is your willpower? Like you know that is not gonna be an easy thing that will just come in your hands, you know. But I think if you have a strong feeling about something and you know that all your energy is gonna gather in there, no matter what it is, then I think actually my experience is often like that. If I have a good feeling about something, no matter what the other people around are saying, if I have a good feeling about that, I still gonna do that.
I so love what you said. I get goosebumps, to be honest, you know, because I think this was the moment I felt the most connected to you when we first met, you know, because there was, to me, when you say things, you know, like they come together in this aspect of love. So there is no shading of them, you know. Willpower can be so easily abused or, you know, like can be so misperceived, but you're saying if I have the right amount and the beauty of the love behind the willpower, you know, and I combine that together with my intuition and with where I want to be headed and then I get good results. Then everybody else can say whatever they want. I know it's true and I'm going to make it true.
Yeah, exactly. Probably it has been like this because my parents didn't push me for music. It was my own choice. They actually wanted to refrain for that. They said like, no, that's not how you're going to make money. That's what you can do on beside your work, you know?
Yeah.
So in a way, I had already when I was much young boy, I had to make this kind of choices, to
Yeah.
believe in what was my inner voice.
Mm.
Again, the outer was going opposite.
Yeah. And so when you say that what you do is listening, is I think you do listen inside more, or do you, how do you would describe listening as a skill as such in connection with everything you do?
I think that's a good question, a really good one. I think, I mean, not always the inner voice, it's the right one. I must admit that it's not always right.
Mm.
But when that inner voice, how do you know that the inner voice is going to be right or not?
Mm.
I think that's the question I ask myself. I usually found out that when you see that you have, let's say, a truth, and someone else is saying another truth, because truth can be so individual at times, you know. So, and then you see how much either or the other truth is vibrating with what's happening around.
Mm.
That's what I usually do. So, you know, if I would see that through my journey, maybe, let's say, you, so my best friend, truth would resonate more, you know, in what was happening there. Then I was like, I can recognize a vibration there, and maybe I should go along with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and sometimes that happened with my own inner truth, and that's how I make my choices.
Yeah. Wow.
So in the end, yeah, that's how it's a continuous listening. Okay, there is a moment, you put that on the side. It's gonna be helpful later. You know?
Yeah, and then kind of follow those calls, those vibrations, as you call them. Mm.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. So is there a single moment, a joyful moment you recollect in this awakening story to this amazing instrument that you mastered quicker, or where you find your connection, let's say it that way, instead of making it a race? You know, is there like a
happy moment from this?
Yeah, a moment you will always remember that you want to share, maybe with
yes.
us.
There is a very clear moment when, one, it was the one I mentioned already, that moment where the teacher was saying, you know, what's seeing in my body, protection or attention. But another really beautiful one is when I performed, this time as a bass player for one of my preferred teacher. We made an amazing concert in Italy. And and it was great because not even playing that instrument, because another journey which I've done with the oud, it's to bring the sound and the technique of the oud or anything that I've been playing on my own instrument, so that I can make my sound fuller and less predictable, let's say. So when I was in this concert where my teacher was playing the oud and I was playing the double bass, I could give something more, playing, you know, the instrument which was my main instrument, but, you know, like responding to the instrument that I know as well. So it's a different, you know, it's an amazing feeling and experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's almost like it's almost a little bit like what we talked about earlier, to bring an element of something into a different context. So you brought what you learned from the oud into your cello, was it, right? Or was it contrabass? Double bass, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it worked. Yeah, it sounds like. Well, thank you so much, Antonio, for sharing your story here, for bringing so much love and care and beauty to the world, and really kind of, you know, forging ahead with what you do.
Thank you for organizing that and inviting.
Yeah, and is there something we can leave for the listeners to find you? Is there something you want to remark on right now? How they can connect with you? Where can they find their music or your performance, or
Yeah, there is actually, I'm just about to launch my website. It's almost ready. So I think by probably the weekend would be ready.
Okay, so by the time we're streaming this, I'm sure we're going to have the wwws under here. In the AntonioAlemanno.com. We're going to put that in the show notes, and then you can see and connect. And do we get sound bites from you there as well? On
you can find there, like sound clip and concert, like videos, and
Looking forward to it already.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, my dear. And thank you to the listeners for coming and tuning in today to this conversation. I hope to see you on the next show in next time. Bye.
Ciao.
If you enjoy listening to my podcast, please consider to become a patron at patreon.com/Alexandra Kreis and pledge your donation.